Hello, this is Professor Brown-Sederberg, and I'd like to spend some time explaining the printf method. Now, we've printed to the screen before using print and println. Print, we know, takes the argument passed to it, prints to the screen, and then stays on that same line. Println prints the argument passed to it, and then goes to the next line. Here we're looking at printf. Printf is a method that can be called with system.out.printf, and it'll print to the screen the argument passed to it formatted as specified. So here we have a number of variables, and we'll use those in this demonstration. So first, let's look at printing to the screen a whole number, formatting it. So I'm calling printf with system.out.printf, and here's the argument that I pass. Notice that the argument that I pass is a string, and in the string I have this, and this is how I'll format what is passed to this method printf following this comma. So here's the string that I want printed. I want printed in it in a specific way, this, the second argument passed. Right? So these are separated by commas. Now, here we're going to print a whole number, and I indicate a whole number with this, the D, for decimal integer. I format this decimal integer, this whole number, with this nomenclature, a percentage sign, and then a number that indicates the number of spaces I want to provide in printing the arguments that's passed in. So here I've specified I want to use 6 spaces to print the whole number that's passed in, and here's the whole number. Now, you'll note that I have a \n at the end of this line, and that's because printf does not go to the next line. If I want to go to the next line, I have to include \n, the escape character new line. Without that, my lines will just go into each other. I won't go to the next line. So if you want printf to print and then go to the next line, include this \n. If not, don't. Now you'll see that I have passed this number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It has 6 numbers in it, and I've given 6 spaces over for that value. And so 6 spaces will be used to portray it. Here I'm passing in b, which is a variable of type int, and you'll note that it has 10 numbers to it. But I'm only providing 6 spaces. Well, what will happen is if this space will expand to accommodate the number passed. It'll never get smaller, but it will get bigger. So let's see if we compile this and then run it. We'll note that here, my first %6, and I'm passing a 6-digit number, it gave 6 spaces over. Here I passed a 10-digit number, and I have 10 spaces given to it. Now, had I said that I was providing, let's say, 10 spaces for this, a 6-digit number, as I compile and then run, you'll see that I have extra spaces given over. So the space that's provided will always be large enough to accommodate the number. If the space provided is larger than the number that's passed, the space will just be expanded. I'll have blank spaces, as I have here. All right? Now, that's how I format a whole number. Let's look at formatting a floating point number. And as I format a floating point number, I use the % number of total spaces I want to provide, the decimal point, and then the number of positions to the right of the decimal. And the letter that I use is F for floating point number. So you'll see here that I have this string, and I want formatted in this way, this number, 123.456789. Now clearly this has more than 2 numbers to the right of the decimal. What printf will do is it'll round and then print. It doesn't change the underlying number. It just manipulates it for the purpose of printing. So you'll see that I have here provided 6 spaces. That's in total. That includes the decimal position and what's to the right of the decimal point. Right? So here I've got a number 123.456789. That will be rounded and formatted this way. Here I'm passing A, which is a double, and you'll note that it has 3 numbers to the left of the decimal, and then 9 numbers to the right. And this too will be rounded and printed as specified. So let's compile this and run it. And we see that I have rounded this to 4.6, and this number, the value A, has been rounded to 1.2, as it should have been. Now, as it happens, this gives over 6 positions, and those 6 positions certainly are 3 to the left, the decimal point 2 to the right. What if I had given over 10 positions for this, 10 in total? And let me compile this again and run it. And we see that I have the extra spaces here. So if I provide more than enough spaces, I have blank spaces printed. Less than enough, I will have the automatic expansion. So if I had provided only 1 space there, I said make it 1 in length. This doesn't even make sense, but let's try it. And now I'll run it, and we'll see that even though I said I only want you to give 1 space for all of the printing, it provided sufficient space for the number that was passed. So that's how you format a floating point number. Let's now look at how to format a character. I'm sorry, we're going to format a string. We'll do characters later. And so we're formatting a string. Now here I'm passing in 2 arguments. I could have passed in any number of arguments up above, but here we'll look at passing in 2. Now when I format a string, it's %S. I don't give over the number of spaces. That's unnecessary. Now here I am passing in 2 arguments here to be formatted in this way. Actually, there's 3 arguments in all. 2 that are to be formatted in this fashion. So I have a string and then a string. Here's my string C, which I know is hello world, and D, how are you? I then, in this, I'm passing in specific strings, not strings that are variables, but specific strings. And I can mix and match this. So what I pass in can be a variable that represents a string or a string itself. And so let's compile this and then run it. And we'll see that they are printed as I specified. We can print strings, hello world, how are you, this way. All right? And I have the same here, but here I'm passing in 2 specific strings. Now, let's look at characters. With a character, I simply use the letter C, again with the %sign. I don't give over the number of spaces. And here I'm passing in 2 arguments to be formatted in this way. So 3 arguments in all. %sign C, so I'll have the first E, and I know that that is X, and then F, I know that's Y. They'll be printed in between these parts of the string. Here I'm passing in specific characters. Remember, those always have that single quotation mark. So let's compile these and then run it. And we see that I have X and Y, that's the values E and F, and then M and N, the specifics. Lastly, let's look at formatting exponential numbers. Now, exponential numbers are just numbers that are so big they can't be represented by a regular number. And so I've manipulated them, a couple of them this way. We've got the math class we can call POW. Remember, that raises 1 number to the next. So here I'm raising 2 to the 100th power. Now when we format an exponential number, it's %sign E. I don't give over the number of spaces, just %sign E. And so I can format this math.pow. I know it'll be a very large number. Or format this A times B. And I know that A is 123.123456789 and B is 12345678990. I'm going to multiply those 2 together and print that to the screen. But again, it's %sign D. So let's compile. And now let's run. And we see that they have been formatted appropriately. Now, that's our printf method. We can use it with whole numbers, and that's our D, and I give over the number of spaces. I can do it with floating point. I do that with F. I specify the total number of spaces. the decimal point, and then the numbers to the right of the decimal point. Remember, this 10 in this example includes the decimal point. So this is saying that we'll have 7 numbers to the left of the decimal 2 to the right. I can format strings with just %S. I don't give over the number of spaces. Same with characters, %C. And again, exponential numbers, %E. Again, I don't give over the number of spaces. Now remember, as I use these formats, it doesn't change the underlying numbers. It just formats the numbers past, prints them to the screen. But what's stored in those spaces, as in this example and this example, are not changed. So here's how you can format, as you print to the screen, numbers, characters, strings, in a format that's more appealing, works better in your output. Thank you.